Now this is controversial. You don't want to miss this. Headlines, New York Times. Supreme Court clears way for Trump's transgender passport policy. A lower court judge had temporarily blocked the administration's policy requiring that passports reflect sex as found on an original birth certificate. Hi, this is Robert Wilkins, aka Basketball Tall, your BT dispatcher, bringing you news and commentary with a different flavor. And today, we have a topic, report by the New York Times I think that you'll find interesting about what's going on in the court process involving this sensitive case, in my opinion. But stay tuned because I want to hear your comments as well as share with you my comment and what I think and how I view this whole entire issue. And well, I can't say it's an issue, but situation that we all find ourselves in today's time. Stay tuned. The Supreme Court cleared the way on Thursday for the Trump administration to stop issuing passports that include gender identity markings selected by applicants. The emergency order, which will remain in place as the case makes its way through the lower courts, marked the latest victory for President Trump before the Supreme Court. The case, Trump versus Orr, stemmed from a Trump administration policy to change gender requirements for passport holders. The policy has been blocked since June, when a federal court temporarily stopped the administration from forcing it while the court case continued. No vote count was given, as is typical in such cases, but the majority offered 4 paragraphs of reasoning for granting the administration's request. Wow. An actual court process now. You know, this is going to make some headline news eventually. I know the Epstein files is dominating the air among Venezuela and other things, but we're at a crossroads in life, aren't we? Especially when it comes to our government. But let's continue on and see what more is being said here by the Times. Displaying passport holders' sex at birth no more offends equal protection principles than displaying their country of birth. In both cases, the government is merely attesting to historical fact without subjecting anyone to differential treatment. The justices who sided with the Trump administration wrote in an unsigned order. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote a dissent, and she was joined by the court's 2 other liberals justices, Elaine Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor. So you can see we're divided in this situation. Let's see what more is being said, and stand by for my commentary. You don't want to miss it. Justice Jackson wrote that it had become routine for the Trump administration to seek emergency relief from the justices after lower courts blocked its policies, adding, as is also becoming routine, this court misunderstands the assignment. She said that the government had found an obliging audience for its effort to change the passport rules among the Supreme Court justices. So just from what we're hearing right now, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Because we're talking about 1% of this country's population and dealing with, we're talking transgender. So don't go anywhere. Let's read on. Justice Jackson explained that she would have rejected the government's request because the documented real-world harms to these plaintiffs obviously outweigh the government's unexplained and inexplicable interest in immediate implementation of the passport policy. John Davis, senior counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union, LGBTQ and HIV Project, which challenged the Trump administration's policy, said in a statement that the court ruling was a heartbreaking setback for the freedom of all people to be themselves and fueled on the fire that Trump administration is stoking against transgender people and their constitutional rights. Well, I can't deny that because that administration does bring that up. I've heard them say it multiple times, but there's no need. Why, you scaring everybody? What's the issue? Like somebody is some way gonna harm me or you? I doubt it. To me, well, stick by, I'll give my commentary at the end. I don't want to give it away right now, because I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. You don't want to miss this, so stay tuned as we continue on. The case arose in the early days of Mr. Trump's second term as a legal challenge to an executive order signed by the president on his first day back in office. That order prompted the State Department to rescind long-standing policies allowing transgender people to update gender markers in their travel documents. The mandate from the president was one of several intended to limit government recognition of transgender status, including orders barring transgender soldiers from the military, requiring the Bureau of Prisons to house female transgender prisoners in men prisons, and ending transgender medical treatment for federal inmates. Wow. You're talking about coming out aggressively, baby. But, some of that, and I know we all listen to this, we're all split on it. Let's be real, we're split on it because we don't want no harm to the transgender. We don't want nothing to happen to anybody. But then again, we look and think, that person shouldn't be in no prison if that's a real man with other men or with women, So I don't know, how do you feel about that? I even had some experience, some training on this, which we were at the University of Oklahoma back in the day. And I might share that with you, but stay tuned. The State Department's passport policies have grown more permissive since the agency issued its first directive on the subject in 1971. At the time, passports did not include a sex marker. In the late 1970s, the department began to include them on passports, a move that the government then attributed to the rise of unisex fashion and hairstyles. Well, I can see that. That makes sense to me. The State Department began allowing transgender people to obtain passports with updated sex markers in the 1990s, so long as they provided evidence of having undergone gender transition surgery. That requirement was rescinded in 2010. Under then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and the department began asking only that transgender passport applicants provide a doctor's letter affirming that they had received appropriate clinical treatment for gender transition. Boy, talking about got to go through a lot to change your sex. Wow. Now, I'm not putting anybody down. I'm just in thought, thinking about this as I read this. Let's hear your thoughts, your comments. But don't be mean now, be nice. Just state your point. Let's continue on. In 2021, the State Department issued the first passport with a gender-neutral marker, an X. The following year, the Biden administration announced a policy allowing passport applicants to select any gender marker. I'm laughing now because it does sound a little funny when you read it that way, giving somebody an option to select whatever they want to be, I don't know. How do you take that? That's how I'm taking it at the moment. But let's read on. The ACLU challenged the Trump administration's reversal of the passport policy, bringing a lawsuit in federal court in Massachusetts on behalf of 7 people who claimed they had not been able to obtain passports that matched their gender identity because of the new policy, or that they would be harmed by the policy when renewing their passports. One thing is that I don't want any harm to anybody. My whole life, my whole career has been about protecting you, protecting the public. Statutorily, the protection of the public. And that's what I was, peace officer and beyond. But I have experiences. I've had parents that come to me that told me that the process that they had to go through, locally, right here in my little town, personally told me that the horrors that they had to go through, that they were told things like, share with them about the suicide rate and all of that. And these folks, who I know, talk to me personally. talked about how it put the whole family in a living hell because they didn't want their child to be killed, commit suicide. Even though suicide rate is high anyway. But, that's what caused, I'm not talking adults, I'm talking kids. So, but then finally, people have woke up to it as well. Now, 25 years of my career, I dealt with juveniles, kids, under the age of 18. Well, some over 18 that got certified as an adult, so youthful offender type thing. But dealing with all gender of kids and seeing how kids, because they're so young, change their minds about what they thought they wanted to do or be. Seriously, think about this. When you were a kid, if you're an adult now, even your children, we know they're going to change their minds. Don't tell it how many times before they grow up about everything. Dealing with LGBTQ, all of that. I've dealt with all of that. And you know what? Here's the truth. When I looked at them, I saw a human being. And I knew how they felt about things. I knew what they liked, they didn't like. I saw those I remember like boys, then later on end up liking girls, vice versa. And when it comes to transgender, in my opinion, this is just me, old law enforcement guy, dealing with nobody but the public, the rich, the poor, been in everybody's homes, lock people up. From this old guy one of those that have a lot of experience in dealing with public social issues, when it comes down to children, I stand on the side that children shouldn't go through that process, in my opinion, whether it's taking hormones or the surgeries, whatever, because that's a child. And I think as parents, guardian, custodians, our job is to protect the child. And to be honest with you, a lot of states, there are laws on that, protection of the child. And we can't, let's not harm, the way I see it, our kids' bodies before they have a chance to mature and then decide this is what I want to do. And if they want to do that when they become a legal adult, hey, that's their business. But when it comes down to kids, we have to protect them even from themselves because of the bad choices and decisions they make as they mature. Don't forget maturity, okay? So when it comes down to this legal challenge of what's going on in court right now, involving this situation, I don't know. I don't want to be the bad guy to say the bad bully thing because I'm not. But to really think logically and set us on a universal path with the rest of the world, here's something to think about. And this flash crossed my mind. What if somewhere down the line, I get a passport with whatever marker there is, and I go somewhere else. But then I decided to stop taking my medication, my hormones and so forth. So if you stop taking your medication, what happens? You go back to your original sex, right? Hey, please don't take this the wrong way, people. I'm not bashing anybody. I'm not talking bad about anybody. But we're having an educational commentary thought here. And how from my career, my experiences, I've always looked at all options, every angle. I just think about if a person goes somewhere and decide to stop taking their hormone medications and they convert back to what they were, or that can be a little misguided in a sense. And I know by me just saying that make people hate me, don't it? But I'm not being hateful or mean. I'm just giving my thought. I'm giving you my career experience, because all I ever want to do is have peace. All I ever want to do is make one's life better. All I want to do is put a smile on somebody's face and make them happy and feel loved, because I care about all people. But in this court process, interesting. So my thoughts on that is, it's best that I don't give a thought, okay? Because there's no winners here. And I'm going to continue to follow this. And if there's more to report on it, we'll come back in and report at a later date, because it's not over. We're in the midst of this court hearing, this legal stuff going on right now, okay? So stay with me, baby. Give me a thumbs up if you like what I'm saying. And please come again, because I have nothing but headline news, my commentary, usually with a different flavor. And what I just shared probably was a different flavor also. And stick with me, and I'll see you next time.